Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So in today's video, I'm going to be making a really fun shaker card using this outline daisy stencil from A Colourful Life Designs. And we're going to be using our WOW Fab Foils on acetate to create a really fun shaker window. So I'm also going to show you another way that you can get a similar look using stencil butters. So if you don't have foils in your stash, I'm going to show you another way that we can do this as well. So I've got the Tacky Dry Gel Medium from the Crafters Workshop, which is my go-to product when it comes to using WOW Fab Foils. Now you can use WOW Bonding Powder, which is a bit like a clear embossing powder that you heat and then the foil sticks to it. However, when you're working on acetate like this, sometimes it's best to avoid heat to avoid any warping, and so that's where the Tacky Dry Gel Medium really comes into its own. So I've placed the acetate on a piece of black card purely just so that it's a little bit more visible on the camera, and then I'm using my magnets on my magnetic glass mat just to hold that all in place. I've got a palette knife that I'm going to use with the Tacky Dry Gel Medium, and then I'm just going to add it over the area that's got the acetate underneath. So you might still be able to see where the acetate is through the stencil, just about. You can see the outline, and I'm just going to add the Tacky Dry Gel Medium through that stencil. It goes on really easily. It's very much the same consistency as their stencil butters, so it's really easy to apply, really easy to spread, and then I'm just popping the excess back in the pot. Now you do want to make sure that you clean off anything that you get this on so that it doesn't dry, because obviously it will just go really sticky. So I am going to wash my stencils straight away in a second, but I'm just going to remove this off the black card so that you can just see there we've got that lovely crisp stenciled image on the acetate. So I'm going to pop that aside to dry. So I've got another piece of acetate here as well, and I've gone ahead and washed my stencil so that it's ready to use again. And I'll use my magnets to hold that oil in place. And then this time I'm going to use some stencil butters from the Crafters Workshop. So I've got Eggplant, Turqoise and Fushia. And I'm going to just show you how using stencil butters on acetate gives you a very similar look to the foiling. Obviously you don't have the same level of shine, but because these stencil butters have got a lot of shimmer in them, you do get that lovely kind of iridescent metallic effect. So they're really, really pretty and easy to work with. As you can see, the texture is very similar to the Tacky Dry Gel Medium, so it's really easy to apply with a palette knife. And because I'm using a smaller palette knife, I have got a lot of control over where I'm applying the stencil butter. So I am going to alternate the colours, and I am just wiping off my palette knife on a bit of tissue in between colours. I don't want to mix them together, and I'm being really careful to just get one colour of stencil butter on each flower at a time. Of course, you don't have to do it like this. You could definitely blend the colours together and have multicoloured flowers. That would be absolutely fine. But I really wanted to keep the colours separate for this technique today. If you don't have the Crafters Workshop stencil butters, but maybe you've got other modelling pastes in your collection, then give it a go on the acetate and just see how it works. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how many things will work on acetate. So I'm just going to lift that up to show you a bit closer now from the camera. I do have a tiny bit of overlapping, but I'm not worried about that. And then I'm just going to set that aside to dry. So while they're drying, I'm going to get the frames made for my shaker card, and I've brought in my Sizzix Big Shot die cutting machine. I've got some stitched nesting dies that were part of the Creative Craft products range from Craft Stash. They're not available anymore, but there's plenty of other A2 nesting dies available out there, and I'm just going to run that through. I've used some washi tape just to kind of hold them in place so that I get a nice even frame, and then once I've peeled off the outer edge and then the washi tape, I've got that lovely frame there. I'm going to keep the washi tape in place so that I can replicate the frame on another piece of cardstock. I am using Miri card from Pink Frog Crafts. This is the pink 280 GSM holographic card. It's absolutely gorgeous. The centre pieces I'll be keeping. I'll add those to my scraps pile because there's plenty of card there to be used on another project. But now I've got these two even frames that we can use for our shaker windows. So now our two pieces of acetate are dry, and you can see when the Tacky Dry Gel Medium dries, it goes clear. So that's when you know that it's ready. And of course the stencil butter has about the same drying time. So I probably left these for about an hour. I did have the window open and I left them near the window so that they air dried fairly quickly. But yeah, you'll know when they're dry because they'll be dry to touch, and also the gel medium goes clear. So now we can start adding foil to the acetate, and I'm going to be using WOW Fab Foil in pink, blush and purple. And I've got lots of scraps in the back of the packet, so I'm going to be using those today. It's just a great way of using up your scraps. And I'm just going to trim a little bit of the fab foil off, and then I just want to add pressure over the area where the gel medium is, and then the sticky gel medium will pull the foil off the release sheet and attach it to the acetate. And it's just a really easy way of adding foil. Now, if you don't want to add different colours of foil here, what you could do is place a piece of foil over the whole panel, and then you could run it through your die cutter machine just in the normal die cutting sandwich, and that will just apply pressure all over it and transfer the foil in one go. So that's another way of doing it. But because I want to add different colours of foil here, it is taking a little bit longer and it's a little bit more fiddly. However, I think the extra time is really worth the end result. So I am making sure that I cover one flower and then go in to the next one, just because if you're leaning across, you do risk your foil sticking to another area where you don't want that colour foil to transfer. So I am trying to be really careful with the way that I'm placing the foil so that it just captures the flower that I want to get that foil colour onto. And then once all the areas are covered, you've got your finished panel, and I think it looks really, really pretty. I do just need to dust my acetate, but you can see we've got a really nice foiled effect there on all of those flowers. So I'm just going to trim a little bit off the edge of each of the pieces of acetate just so that it fits really nicely behind that frame. I am making A2 size cards today, so my frames are about 4 inches by 5 1/4. I am just going to add some liquid glue to hold the acetate in place, but of course if you prefer to use red line tape, then you could definitely use that here instead. I'm using my magnets in between times just to hold it down while the glue grabs, because obviously acetate's a little bit sticky. It does take a little bit longer to just grab and dry, so the magnets really help with that. And then once both of our frames are ready, I'm going to add some thin foam tape all around the edge of the frame. When you're adding foam tape to create a shaker window, you do want to make sure that the edges of the foam tape are really butted up tight against each other, because you don't want any of the sequins coming out. If you don't have foam tape, then you could just have die cut multiple frames out of some white cardstock, glued them all together, and then created your shaker window that way. So that would work just as well. Or even fun foam, you could die cut a frame from that and then add some double-sided adhesive tape or glue to hold that down. Now I am using my anti-static powder bag around each of the window frames just so that the any stickiness or static from the foam tape doesn't cause the sequins to stick to it, because there's nothing worse than a shaker card that doesn't shake. So I like to use my anti-static powder bag, and I'm just adding some card bling from A Colourful Life Designs. And then I'm going to remove the backing tape from the foam tape and add a little bit of liquid glue just so that we've got a little bit of wiggle room time when we stick that down to make sure that it's nice and centered on the card. You also want to smooth out your sequins before you stick the acetate window over it so that there's no kind of bulky areas of sequins that get stuck on the acetate. I've done that many times where I forgot to smooth them out. I stick the window down and then they all get stuck. So you just want to smooth them out, and then we've got that lovely shaker window there. And then here's the other one that I created using the stencil butter, and I actually think that both the stencil butter and the foil look equally beautiful, and I don't really think you can tell much of a difference apart, to be honest. So they worked really well on the acetate. To add a sentiment, I'm going to be using the Simple Flowers stamp set from Concord and 9th, the Christina Warner collection, and I'm going to be using some white embossing powder on some black cardstock. This is the white superfine embossing powder from WOW, and I'm just stamping my sentiments in the WOW embossing ink. Just to let you know that at the minute, WOW have got a 10% discount off all their superfine embossing powders. And I think that superfine embossing powders are really important to have in your collection, especially if you like to heat emboss your sentiments or heat emboss fine detailed stamped images, because the superfine powders just capture all of that detail. And as you can see, when I heat set this, it just captures the sentiment perfectly. So I think they're an essential for your stash if you like heat embossing. I'll leave links in the description box below, and of course the coupon code for that discount. I'm just going to use the coordinating dies to die cut those sentiments, and then add a little bit of foam tape to attach them to the card, and then that's our 2 cards finished for today. So thank you so much for joining me. As always, all the products that I've used will be linked in the description box below. Let me know in the comments what you prefer. Do you like the foiled look, or do you like the stencil butter look? And will you be giving this a go? Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you've enjoyed this tutorial. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, then I'd love to have you. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. As always, I'll leave some close-up photos now so that you can see the cards in a little bit more detail. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.